Right now, joining us live is Meena Bose, Chair of Presidential Studies and Professor of Political Science at Hofstra University. Dr. Bose, thanks for being with us tonight. Obviously, the stakes were as high as they could be for President Biden tonight. How do you think he did? And more importantly, how do you think members of his own party are viewing his performance tonight?
I think we're seeing the results here. President Biden did much better than at the debate 2 weeks ago, and he showed his expertise, long-standing expertise in foreign policy. Is this enough to quell doubts in the Democratic Party? Evidently not. More members of Congress, a couple more, have called for him to step aside. I think President Biden made it very clear what the stakes are in this election, and he did better, certainly, than he did a couple weeks ago. Did he show that he is the only person, that he is the best person for the job? That's an open question, I think.
Yeah, we did see some flubs, but the president did a lot of talking about policy, drawing contrast with Donald Trump. Do you think he was successful in doing that?
Well, I think he made those points, and then he did so afterward, right, on social media, where he talked about a convicted felon and a prosecutor, Harris versus Trump, right, the flub that he made about Vice President Trump. But I'm not sure that addresses the concerns that the concerns right now are not Biden versus Trump. It's, can President Biden get through the election, win, and govern for the next 4 years? To some degree, those questions are unanswerable, and it's a question of confidence. And it's not clear that this news conference built that confidence.
Mm-hmm. No, I've seen a lot of analysis to the extent that it was somewhere in the middle, as you yourself said, and a lot of people maybe either wanted it to be absolutely terrible so they could sort of speed up the process of getting rid of him as the nominee, or amazing and sort of swat away all the questions for good. Right now, really, the audience he has to worry about is his fellow Democratic lawmakers. Where do you think they are tonight after seeing what they saw?
Well, by no means is it a majority of lawmakers, but the number of members of the House and a senator so far have spoken. The former Speaker of the House and Congresswoman Pelosi, right, has suggested, right, that the president should consider whether he's the best person, and said if he thinks he is, then she's behind him. And if President Biden insists on staying in, the party will not remove him. Mm-hmm. But it's pretty clear that there is a lot of internal discussion and a lot of concern. Again, he expressed his confidence in Vice President Harris and then said, I'm the best person for the job. He hasn't really made clear why it has to be him. And the questions about his age, his energy, his ability to kind of stay the course over the long term, to keep doing what he's doing, it's just not, there are a lot of unknowns there and a lot of questions that have been raised for some time, just more publicly now than they were before the debate.
All right, well, we'll have to leave the conversation there. Meena Bose, thanks for staying up with us late and joining us with your breakdown. Appreciate it.
Of course.
And of course, stay with us for the latest on the presidential race. You can get updates anytime on our website, fox5ny.com.